just to remind ourselves, this is why Steve Biko says it best. He said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. From Genghis Khan to Hitler, history shows us that the first war that you have to win before you actually go physically to war, you've got to win the propaganda war. The propaganda war is the first step towards domination. And history makes it clear that if we want freedom, freedom begins in the mind.
This important event. I mean, for me, at the personal level, it's very important because Sista Shanice was one of the people who impressed me because he was very, very, very inspiration to my life as a journalist and activist and what the sister come and doing. I was introduced to Sista Shanice and speak with a deep-rooted African-centric passion for African advances to the global African historical truth. And Sista Shanice is one of the women who come in this position of journalism. Remember that the Martin Garvey was a journalist and Mumia Bujaba was a journalist, and Sista Shanice is one of the many important journalists in our time for Pan-African people. So, Sister, how are you doing there?
Greetings, beloved. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay, Sister, one of the questions I will talk with you is the role of the Pan-Africanist media today on the building of self-determination narrative and the governance legacy.
Yes.
Go ahead, my sister.
Thank you so much. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, good day again, my family. Greetings to one and all. And so first of all, I want to just say thank you so much to you, Dr. Abuye, for being a great friend in the movement. And, you know, I just want to express my gratitude to you and all the organizers that are involved in organizing today's event and for inviting me to speak, you know, on this really important topic. I want to apologize that... Thank you.
Sister, but please, Sister, then we will have the discussion when she finishes. Then.
Thank you, Marcel.
We'll stop and then we'll have the discussion. Go ahead, Sister.
Thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sista Shanice. I'm a journalist, author, researcher, radio presenter on the Big G Galaxy Afiri Radio, Pan-African radio station that's been around for over 40 years. I'm also a YouTube and TikTok vlogger on the Sista Shanice Show platforms. And above all, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm committed to African advancement. I'm committed to historical truths and write extensively about that as an author. And I'm committed to the liberation of the African mind. So, you know, today, I'm going to be speaking about something that I feel affects every single one of us as Africans on the continent and across the diaspora. I'm also going to be talking about what I consider to be the importance of having a Pan-African media network, and also the importance for us as Africans to be in control of our own media and narrative, and to be building, you know, a self-determining narrative as well. And this is what I consider to be really important for us in the 21st century, as it was in the 20th century in the days of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Why should media matter to us as Africans? We've got the mainstream media. Why do we need our own media? Some people may ask. Well, I think Carter G. Woodson, who was the father of African American history, says it well. He once warned that if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man should think, You don't have to worry about what he's doing or what he's going to do. You can make a man feel inferior. And if you can make him feel inferior, you don't have to force him to accept an inferior state, because he will look for it himself. And if you can make a man think he is just an outcast, you don't have to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. Wow. That is a very profound Ashe. You know, this is why, you know, the media is so, so important. Most of us don't realize that there is a war going on for our mind. Our mind is a battlefield for the media industry, and the media is the weapon. And for centuries, our oppressors have been able to successfully use the media to shape how we see ourselves, how we see our history, and even how we see our potential. So think about it. When a child grows up, if they're constantly hearing Africa is backward, Africa's corrupt, Africa is weak, incapable, the child begins to internalize those lies. That is why Steve Biko said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most potent weapon, Tendamwari, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So the media is actually a tool of enormous power, of immense power. It shapes not only the individual mind, but it also shapes our collective consciousness. So I'm hearing an echo coming back at me. I hope it's not interfering there. But, you know, the media can actually influence how we see the world. And it can influence how we see ourselves, how we view our leaders, how we view our communities. The media can even influence our very identity as a people. If we and the world are taught to see ourselves as Africans as inferior, that is how we're going to be treated. And if we're taught to revere others as being powerful, then their power is amplified in our minds while ours is diminished. So the global media machine is powerful. And let's consider this. The BBC World Service reaches 111 million people in Africa every week. 111 million of our people in Africa every week. And that's not us controlling the BBC World Service. Okay, they are producing content in English, French, Hausa, Kinyarwanda, Kirundi, Somali, and Swahili. And in 2021, the UK government granted the BBC World Service 94.4 million to maintain its operations. 94.4 million. Now, the French media is just as influential on the continent, in the Francophone speaking countries. They actually reach 58 million listeners via African news broadcasts, who also reach millions more. And the online platforms like Le Monde, Afrique, they reach over 4 million visitors every month. And so every day, our people are getting a narrative that actually penetrates our communities, shapes the minds of our people, shapes their thinking, their perception, and is controlling their thoughts. So ask yourself, why are they spending so much money to speak to us? Why do our oppressors invest so heavily in speaking to Africans? That's because control over the mind is control over the people. You know, we've got a situation where the media is being used as a tool of mental control. It controls our minds, it controls our thinking, and so it controls our behavior. And if you can control the minds of a person, if you can control the behavior of a person, then basically you're controlling their actions without even touching them. And too many Africans still believe the narrative of our own inferiority. Wow. So the media is a psychological weapon of mass domination and mass control. And by dominating the media, the oppressor controls our beliefs, our values, our self-image, how we view ourselves, how others look at us. They inject their standards of beauty. They therefore promote everything white and everything light and denigrate everything black as evil. And this is what we're being fed on a daily basis. They control how we perceive our history, how we perceive our culture. They control how we perceive our African religions and spirituality. And they control how we view our potential and our place in the world as well. And that is too much power in the hands of our oppressors. And so for the majority of Africans, the mainstream media is the primary source of information. It's framing the events, the tone of the reporting. They're selecting the stories that they feed to us. And there's this constant narrative that we're being fed of inferiority, of helplessness and dependency. So let's think about that. You know, our history, they've rewritten it. And they've given us a history as something to be pitied, not as something to celebrate. And when it comes to our achievements, their media ignores it or minimizes it. And we know this. There are so many geniuses on the African continent right now. You know, we have geniuses who are turning plastic into fuel, who are using trees to create light, you know, who are using stones to create energy. There's so much, so many geniuses on the continent, but their achievements are being ignored or minimized by the mainstream media. That's because the mainstream media is not for us. They're minimizing our potential, ignoring our potential. And when they do talk about us as Africans, they're framing it as though we're a threat to the world. We're a threat to their countries. Too many Africans coming into their country, it's a threat. They're not portraying our strengths. They're not portraying the skills, the talents, and the abilities that we have, despite the ongoing brain drain. And so the international media actually tells a story of us as Africans as being poor, chaotic, war-torn, dirty, corrupt, backward, incapable. The international media is telling a really awful story about us as Africans. So all of what I said, basically, how is that going to impact on us as Africans? It means that we're internalizing that oppression. We're internalizing everything that's been said. The vast majority of our young people and our people, young and old, are accepting the stories about us as truth. They're accepting the stories of us as Africans as truth. And what it means is we then begin to doubt our own power, and we're unconscious of the extent to which we then end up perpetuating our own subjugation. And when we believe it and when we accept it, we're basically placing limits on ourselves. We accept the oppressor's version of reality, even if it's not the truth. And we accept it, most of us, without even knowing it. And then they reinforce it with their systems of oppression. So just to remind ourselves, this is why Steve Biko says it best. He said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. You know, from Genghis Khan to Hitler, history shows us that the first war that you have to win before you actually go physically to war, you've got to win the propaganda war. The propaganda war is the first step towards domination. Yeah? And history makes it clear that if we want freedom, freedom begins in the mind. The freedom that we are striving for, people, the independence that we want, family, it starts in the mind. The mind is the first source of liberation. That's why they invest so much money in trying to control our minds. Because the minute we take control of our mind, therein starts our liberation. We have to reject all their false narratives that they are imposing on us. We've got to reclaim our dignity, reclaim our potential, reclaim our power. And when we start doing that, we're going to become unstoppable. Yeah, history shows us time and time again, every revolution begins with a shift in the thinking. When we think about the Haitian Revolution, for example, it started with a shift in the thinking. It started when the people, the Haitians themselves, awakened to the fact, to believing that they were unstoppable. And all the slave revolts that happened afterwards was fueled by a belief of freedom and a belief that freedom could be achieved and a belief, you know, that they demanded and needed human dignity. The decolonization movements, they began when Africans, you know, across the continent started to imagine themselves as citizens of independent nations. And so they started their movements for independence. The civil rights and the Black Power movements, they began when, you know, us as Africans in the diaspora started reshaping, you know, the perception of ourselves. And we decided that we're going to move from being passive, you know, acceptance of what the colonialists and the powers that be were throwing at us to becoming active resistance in the movement. And so if we want to liberate ourselves, we must decolonize our mind. We have to write our own stories. We have to heal from the internalized inferiority complex that their mainstream media has imposed on us. We've got to embrace our African greatness. We've got to reclaim our rightful place in history. We've got to reclaim our power in the world. And that's why I just embrace, you know, everything African. You know, on my regular shows on YouTube, I invite great African speakers. Our brother, you know, Dr. Mbuye, he joined me last strong as well, because it's about us reclaiming, you know, the right to speak for ourselves, to determine our own narrative, to reclaim our history and our power in the world, you know. And that is also what's phenomenal about the vision of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, you know, that vision of independence. He taught us that liberation requires independence on a multiplicity of levels: political independence, agricultural independence, industrial independence. He taught us we've got to take control of our own educational systems, our own technologies, our own health and medical care systems have to be independent. We have to be in control of our economy, control of our culture, and spiritually be independent as well. So we've got our work cut out because, you know, the mainstream media is promoting integration and a dependency culture. We find ourselves having to go to them for everything. And this is taking us away from the need for us to be independent. So we're not going to achieve true liberation, family, without independence. And that independence starts in our thoughts. It starts in our thoughts, our institutions, and in our media. And so, you know, the Pan-African response is critical during these times. And the role of us as Pan-Africanists is clear. We have to control our own media. We have to control our own narrative, just as Marcus Mosiah Garvey did in his time. We've got to dismantle and destroy the mental chains of enslavement in our minds. We've got to challenge the limiting beliefs. We've got to tell our own stories. We've got to assert control over our history, our culture, our identity, our spirituality, all of this, and how we are portrayed as well. Very importantly, we've got to take control of how we are portrayed in their media. And that's why I really love YouTube and the other social media platforms that are showing us as Africans in our beauty and our glory. And we must educate and we must empower Africans everywhere to be doing that work. So we've got to, as Pan-Africanists, be building African-centered institutions, African systems, narratives that are rooted in our own world view. We've got to acknowledge our revolutionary brothers and sisters in Burkina Faso, in Mali, Niger. We've got to use our media to protect them and to support them. And let's remember, you know, today we're actually living in a digital age. We've got social media. We've got YouTube and podcasts and blogs and AI. And these are our new weapons, family, of liberation. We've got to use social media as a weapon, you know, to liberate the minds of our people everywhere. So in this digital age, the tools are on our fingertips, right? We can reach the world. I'm speaking now to the Spanish-speaking world. I'm bypassing the colonial narratives. I'm bypassing, you know, their TV networks that have held us back for centuries. And we are now able to communicate with our brothers and sisters around the world, you know. So we've got to use these social media platforms. Let's develop our independent African-centered radio stations, television stations in every African nation and in our diaspora community. You know, media platforms, we've got to use them to celebrate our scientists, our artists, our spirituality, our leaders, you know, not the misleaders, obviously, our leaders who have a heart for us as Africans. We've got to use our media platforms to celebrate them. Our innovators, our geniuses. Let's use our platforms to showcase them, you know, especially to our young people. And we've got to use that media to teach the next generation about our history, about our potential and our power. We've got to counter the works of the mainstream. So I've got over 400 videos on my YouTube channel featuring lectures from leading Pan-Africanists around the world, from the UK to America to the continent, you know, and the Caribbean as well. I've got historians who have been advancing, you know, the Garveyite message of African unity, of self-determination. I've produced a free ebook honoring Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Get your copy from Gumroad. That free ebook is designed to inspire our young people and our people everywhere, and to give our people a pro-African vision, pro-African thinking and wisdom. You can get that free of charge, or you can leave a donation. It's entirely up to you. My reason for doing it is to just get the message out there. So together, you know, with the Pan-Africanist education, Pan-Africanist media, using our digital platforms as weapons, we can reshape the minds of our people. We've got to reclaim our narrative, and by reclaiming our narrative, we can actually secure the liberation of the minds of our people everywhere. So if we control our minds, we control our thoughts. If we control our thoughts, we control our actions. And if we control our actions, we control our destiny. So family, you know, this isn't just a fight for the media. It's a fight for our dignity, a fight for our identity, a fight for our true history, and a fight for our freedom. So in closing, our task is clear as Pan-Africanists. We've got to be making those steps towards undoing the mental and psychological chains that are being placed around our minds on a daily basis. We've got to reclaim our media, reclaim our narrative, and in so doing, we'll reclaim the minds and we'll reclaim, you know, our future destiny. So family, we've got a fight on our hands, but we've got the tools to do it as well. So let's begin to liberate our minds and our thoughts. I know there's a lot of great organizations already out there doing that work, you know, using the social media platform across the continent and across the diaspora to remind us as a people of our worth. It's so important. We've got to reach the minds of our children as well, so they grow up, you know, in confidence, knowing that they're the heirs of a great rich continent, knowing, you know, that there's a continent they come from a continent that's civilized the world, knowing that they come from a continent that's rich with resources and minerals and has a rich and great history. So as Pan-Africanists, let's be using the tools to undo the chains of mental enslavement. It's our responsibility to reclaim the media. It's our responsibility to reclaim our narrative and our responsibility to reclaim our minds. And we can do this. We can do it. We must do it. We must do it. We must tell the truth. And if we do it together, we will win. We can win. We must win. Thank you so, so much for listening.